Okay, can you guys see me? Hopefully you guys can see me. All right, friends, welcome to the Jelly Roll Club. This is Krabby Patty, the series, episode 2. If you did not watch the first one, you're going to want to start there before you jump into this one. Okay, so last time we were together, we were doing some curvy piecing. And so I taught you guys how to cut a piece of fabric that looks like this and sew it together to make some curvy piecing. And I just want to show you guys really quick before we get started my finished Krabby Patty panel. So if I go behind me and I pull this down, I'm going to show you guys Krabby Patty, how she turned out. I like this background. So I have my sailboat and I have my Krabby Patty. And as you can see, I did a lot of curvy piecing. And those curvy pieces lay nice and flat, so you don't have to worry about sewing those in a weird way. So I just did a regular, maybe a little bit bigger than a 1/4 inch seam when I put my Krabby Patty. I'm going to leave the sun off because I want to make sure that I trim it before I add the little sun in the corner. And so there's my little Krabby Patty. There's my sailboat. I thought about putting a little pirate in there, but I haven't decided yet. So we'll wait and see. If you think I need a pirate in my little ship, one of our Jelly Roll Club friends already did a pirate ship for hers. It was super cute. So if you want to do a pirate ship instead of a sailboat, you can do that. This is your quilt. All right, so let me show you what we're doing. So the first thing that I did, say hello to each other. Don't forget the project page is www.jellyrollclub.com, and you're going to look for Krabby Patty. And let me show you what that looks like. I added lots of resources for today, so I'm going to switch to my desktop so you can see what I've got. Okay, so the Krabby Patty page has several resources that you're going to want to grab. So for this month, month 2, building the center, I made a little modification. I was going to do just regular flying geese in the middle, but I decided to do wandering geese, and I think it looks more interesting, so I'm going to show you what I did. All right, so you're going to have a handout, and it's going to look like this, and it's going to show you how to put together that wandering geese unit, which is 10.5 by 10.5, and it's also going to show you how to kind of trim them up and add them to the top and bottom of that panel and then to the left and right side. So you're going to want that because it gives you additional information on trimming sizes, okay? The other thing that you're going to want to grab, if you are choosing a specific method, there's several methods for making this particular block. There is a rotary cutting diagram for those of you who want to just rotary cut these, and I'm going to show you the rotary cutting method with a couple of shortcuts. So whenever I make my patterns, I use something called Electric Quilt 8, but sometimes it gives you weird little things like this block right here. It's like a 90 degree and a 45 and 4 7/8. And so you're not quite sure how to do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a shortcut for that rotary cutting. Then if you want to use printable templates, those are easy to use if you're rotary cutting as well, or if you're hand piecing. So these could be used for both hand piecing or rotary cutting. So I gave you templates, I gave you rotary cutting dimensions, and I gave you a handout. So that's what's on there, okay? All right, I'm going to shrink this down because we don't need this. I'm going to move this over, and then I'm going to show you the actual block. So the center that we're working on today, we show you the actual block, and this is what it looks like. And let me just pull that over. So you're going to see this block. Let me remove that. And so the block that we're doing today has several pieces, and we're going to start with this piece right here. So we're going to start with E, which is this little flying goose that goes up and down. We have 5 of those, and those are in the middle. And then we have C, which is like a half square triangle that's laid on an angle. And then we have D, which is like a filler, and then B, which is another filler. So you're going to see me referring to those. So we're going to talk about these using one name. I'm going to call E these little things that fly up and down, the wandering geese. To me, they look like kind of a school of fish swimming around in the water. And so on each side, you have just a regular jelly roll strip. A is a 2.5 inch strip. on either side, and that is how the block is put together. So the middle is 6.5 inches across, and then you have 2 jelly roll strips on either side. All right, so let me go ahead and show you my finished block. And so what I did is I went ahead and I did this. I found this print that I had, and on camera it looks kind of blue. I'm not sure why, but it's actually like a dark teal. And then I had this yellow that looks like it has coral. So this is how I made mine, and all of my blocks are going to be the same. I need 14 of these. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. I did a little math to simplify that, and if you happen to have one of these, it's called a mini companion angle. It's just a little half square triangle, and let me lay something on there so you can see it. It's like a little half square triangle, and it fits across a jelly roll strip, which is why I bought it, because I use it a lot. So if you want to make half square triangles and you want to make them 1 or 2 at a time, you can actually just lay that on a jelly roll strip, and that fits exactly there. And that's called a mini companion angle. I bought it at Joann Fabrics a while ago. I think they were going out of business, my local store. They had a bunch of stuff on clearance, and I bought that, and it works really well. So you might have one of these, and this works perfectly for this project. If you don't have one of these, you can always just use your ruler like this, and you can lay the ruler so that this 45-degree angle is lined up like this, and then you're going to bring it down, and you're just going to line it up so that your ruler, stick it up just a hair so you can nab that off, is going to measure across here. It's going to measure like 5, I think, and 1/4. Let me just double check that. I don't want to tell you incorrectly. Yes, that is 5 1/4. So if you have a thing, you can just line it up, and as long as it's lined up with this measures 5 1/4, then you can use a regular ruler to cut those. All right, so I just used my little companion angle and my regular 6.5 inch ruler to work on these blocks. All right, so the first thing that I did is I need these little wandering geese for my middle. And like I said, for those, I used half square triangles. And so I have a bunch right here that I've already cut. They look like this. And that's what goes in there. And you can see the little tops are knopped off. Okay, the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to need squares that are 4 7/8. So I need squares that are 4 7/8. And so I'm just going to pull, let me get my mat out of here. And I have a total of 28 of these 4 7/8, and those are my water. And for those, I'm just going to cut them in half, like this. And just lay a ruler on here of some type that reaches from corner to corner, and I'm just going to cut that in half. These are going to become my geese, left and right. Right, so these are 2 mirror images. So make sure that if you don't have a batik, that you make sure that you're cutting them like this. So once you have those 2 pieces, you're going to take and you're going to rotate these, because these need to have like this, just like this goes right in here and this goes right in here, and you're going to have to lay them mirror images. So you're going to take this one, and you can go ahead and put one of your little triangles right on here, and it's going to be bigger than what you need. And so you're going to lay it right sides both facing up, and you're going to line this one up with this tip, and this one's going to hang over, and that's okay. That's what it's supposed to do. You're going to go like this, and you're also going to go like this. Same thing, right sides facing each other, and you're going to want to skew it to the outside of this block. So I've got this lined up with the outside like this. And now that I have it, I can go over to my sewing machine and I can sew one pair of these. And so that's what I'm going to do. Can you guys see and hear me when I'm over here at my sewing machine? I've got a lot of stuff going on, but I'm going to start sewing, and I'm going to sew, if you want to start sewing with the triangle underneath, because see how it has that peekaboo? You're going to want to start sewing 1/4 of an inch, and where that little triangle hits that is where you want to start sewing. And it also keeps it from getting chewed up. I'm just going to put my presser foot down, and I'm going to start sewing that. All right, so I'm going to go straight across. And I'm going to do the same with this one. I'm going to line these up, and then I'm going to sew 1/4 of an inch. Now, I have a 1/4 inch foot on my machine, so I can sew from either side of my foot. But if you don't, just line this up. And make sure that it's lined up right there at the tip on the edge. All right. Once you get there, then you can go ahead and tie it off and do your little leader ender or whatever it is that you're going to do, and that should be ready to go. And I'll show you what one pair looks like. All right. All right, can you guys see that? 2 little triangles? Okay, so now that I have this, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to just kind of smooth those out to make sure I don't have any puckers, and I don't. My fabric is lightly starched for this project, super important. I'm going to set that seam. Let me tie these apart before I press them. And I have a little bunny ear that's sticking out, and that's okay. And so then these are going to be pressed opposite sides towards the goose, or the little fish, or whatever you want to call that. We're going to go up like this. So I'm just going to take my iron and press without stretching. And this should be okay because this is on a straight of grain, and this is, so you have a straight of grain on the blue, and then you have a bias on the white, so that stabilizes it. Okay, so then these start going together like this. But if you notice, we have something missing here. We have one of these little guys that should go right in here. And so what I'm going to want to do is I'm going to want to sew this over here on this side. And so that blunted edge keeps you from having too much bulk at that seam, and so that's why that works. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to snip a little bit of that doggy ear off of there, like that. I'm going to make it square, right? And then I'm going to lay this right in there. And I'm going to sew it on this side. And I'm going to want to push up against there and do a 1/4 inch seam. So I'll be right back, and I'll show you how that looks. All right, so now that I have it, I'm going to make sure that I sew from this side, not from the other side, because I don't want that to slip around on me, because this is I have a bias and a straight of grain. So anywhere that I could, I tried to put a bias and a straight of grain together. And so now I'm going to just line up those edges. And I'm going to sew right off the end. All right. Super easy. So now that I have this, let me just kind of straighten my stitching. If your tension is tight on your machine like mine is, sometimes it buckles a little bit. I could loosen the tension, but I really don't want to. And so now this is going to go towards the goose. And if I did it correctly, if my 1/4 inch seam is accurate, then this should be a straight line, and it is. All I need to do now is nip that little bunny ear that I left a little bit long. and there's very little trimming. I tried to do math so that this was exact, right? And so that's the reason why these little blue blocks that I have are 4 7/8. For those of you that have never measured odd little measurements like that on your ruler, so if you look at your ruler, these are 1/8 inch marks. And so I just lined up a piece of paper with that 7/8. So I just counted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then I lined that little piece of paper up, and it makes it easier to cut like that. So you can just look at it coming in 1/8 of an inch from that 5. And that's how I was able to cut those accurately. So I just lined up a paper and I taped it. And that's just my little pro tip. All right, so once I have that, what I'm going to do to this, right, is I'm going to nip the bunny ear. Just like that. And I'm going to lay this over here. And so now, look at this. It fits with my nipped ear. So that fits on this end. You see there's no extra. And that fits over here because it has that blunted tip. And so let me just line those up. And I will go sew a 1/4 inch seam on this side. This block looks super complicated, but if you break it down, it's actually not that bad. Now, what happens if you don't have a fancy ruler, right? Like my little companion ruler. There's a little bit of math that you can do, and you can actually save yourself from having to go out and buy another tool. I like my little mini companion ruler just because I do a lot of stuff with jelly rolls, and I like making little half square triangles with it, especially singletons out of scrap. But if you don't want to, I'm going to show you the little math formula. All right. So now that I have this, my geese are going upward. And I'm off just a smidge, but that's not going to hurt me anything. I'm going to fix that in a second. Okay. Now that I have it like this, I can go ahead and add more of those. And what I have here is more of these little things that I already made. And I'm going to show you the fast method for making a bunch of these that'll save you a ton of time. Okay. The magic formula for making these in a big hurry and saving yourself a lot of time from cutting triangles is called the 2-square method. And so the 2-square method is a quick little formula that just adds a 1/4 of an inch. And so what you do is you take 2 squares, your background square, any size, it doesn't even matter what size for these blocks. If you want to make them in a bunch of different sizes, you can test it out. But for this particular block, I used my starting background of 4 7/8. And then for my white square, I added a 1/4 of an inch, so they're 5 1/8. And so I took one square that's 5 1/8 and one square that's a 1/4 of an inch smaller. So this one is 1/4 of an inch smaller than this one. Look, just like this. You should see 1/8 of an inch all the way around. Once you have that, you're going to cut these in half. This one here on the diagonal. And you're going to cut this in half on the diagonal in just a minute. So you're going to lay this here, just like this. And you're going to lay this one here, right sides together. Now you're going to have a 1/4 of an inch that hangs off each end, and that's okay because they were different sizes to begin with. So now that I have these two, I'm going to sew down this side and across, down and across. And I know that seems weird, but I'm going to enclose this. So I'm going to come up here, sew off the end, sew down here, sew across here, and sew down here. And I'm going to show you how that works. So this is the easy method. So if you haven't started cutting, you may want to do it this way. And I can make wandering geese in any size just by doing it this way. So now let me go ahead and show you what this looks like. So I'm going to go over to the sewing machine and I'm going to show you the shortcut method. Everybody loves a good shortcut method. Okay, so on one side, remember I'm going to go sew all the way down, just like this. I'm going to sew them both down one side right here. And then I'm going to turn around and sew them again on the opposite side. And I'm going to make something that looks like a weird little pocket. You're going to be like, what is she doing? No worries. All right, so I've stitched it on this side. So now I'm going to flip it over so you can see that stitch across there. And I'm going to stitch down this side just like this. And that's just so that my little triangle won't get stuck in my feed dogs. And then I'm going to do the same thing to the other one. I'm going to flip it over. You can see where I've stitched 1/4 inch, and I'm going to come down the opposite side. Just make sure those are lined up. And I'm using a scant 1/4 inch for this. Not a fat quarter, not a true quarter. I'm using a scant 1/4. All right. You knew I was going to try to find an easier way. Okay, so now that I have these look like a pocket. See these? Just like that. Right sides together. They're sewn on 2 sides. Now I'm going to cut these in half on a diagonal. So I'm just going to take them like this. I'm going to line up my 45-degree line with my stitching, and I'm going to get an exact corner to corner like this. Ta-da! And now I have 2 of these that are mirror imaged. Look at that. Super easy, and that's the correct size. I'm going to do that again. Just kind of finger press that seam. Line it up with my 45-degree, and this is your magic trick for the day, friends. This is the fast way to do it. And so now I have 2 more. So instead of cutting a bunch of little triangles, lining them up, trimming all the bunny ears, this is one way of doing all of those lickety-split. Okay? So now that you have all of those, you're going to just press them upwards towards the little wandering goose fabric. And then I'm going to show you how to finish the last segment. So we're going to press these all up. And you're going to leave the little bunnies alone because you need those later to line them up. So leave all of these. What do you guys think of the 2 square method? Are you guys going to cut rotary cut, template cut, the 2 square method? There's probably lots of other ways to make these, but these are how I'm going to save you time. All right. Now that I have these, I can do them just like this. There's a left, a left, a right. So you can start like this, right? You start with a little triangle in the middle, and you go left, right, left, right, left, right. All right. So now that we've started, we're going to go ahead and just finish this one. I've got a piece that I need to put here, right? Because there's 5 geese in this thing. I'm going to have to line this up, and I'm going to have to hang this 1/4 inch on either side. Is just going to come over like this. I'm going to press it really well, and I'm going to make sure that I have that. I'm going to scooch this over just a hair where that one was uneven, and then I'm just going to sew 1/4 inch straight across from that one. And this one will be waist, this at the bottom. So now I'm going to go up here. Gives me 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I'll show you how to finish this last 5th one. All right, so I'm going to go over here, and I'm going to show you how to do that. So we're going to just line this up. So yeah, if you want to save yourself a ton of time, just cut it with squares if you have squares instead of jelly rolls. There we go. then I'm just going to pull this off of here. And then I have one more to line up, one more side, and then I have to do a little triangle. Okay, I'm going to press this. Pressing is fundamental for this block. And we're going to go upwards, and this is going to want to go up like this. And you are sewing correctly if you are having this 1/4 inch. All right, so now that I've got it, you are correct if you have this little 1/4 inch right there. Now you can nip your little bunny ears like this, and you're going to trim those right there. You should have that 1/4 inch right there because that's where you're going to join the next piece. Now look at this weird bottom that I have down here. The only thing I need to do down here is when I get ready to trim this up is I'm going to cut off that bottom. And so I'm going to have a tiny bit of waste down here at the bottom. I'm just going to line this up. And I'm going to chop that triangle like that. And I'm going to leave that, and then I'm going to fix that here at the end. But that is how I do this one to save myself from having to cut that weird little piece with an angle. So if you want to save yourself all the weird cuts, sometimes that software that I use gives me all these odd cuts, but there's ways of shortcutting it, and I try to shortcut it all the time. All right, so now that I've trimmed that bunny ear, I'm going to line it up. So that bunny ear is gone, and I'm going to line it up on the even side. And this is how this works. And if it hangs out on this side, it's fine. So I'm going to hang it out over here, and I'm going to line it up with the even side because this one is not one of the blunted ones. So I'm going to show you how to add this one and then the final little triangle on the side. All right, so one more time. I always sew with that piece that I'm adding on the bottom because I want to see this little intersection because I want to keep those triangle points from getting cut off. And as long as you're sewing to the right of that little intersection right there, as you come through, as long as you're sewing just a hair to the right, that's why I use a scant 1/4 inch, then these should all match right up. And that's the beauty of this block is there's very little trimming. When you're done with this, you're not going to have to do a bunch of squaring as long as you've lined up everything and your 1/4 inch is accurate. All right, who's going to use the handy 2 square method for this one? Now, there's even another way to make this block. For those of you who are new to Wandering Geese, if you want to make these with jelly roll strips, only jelly roll strips instead of big squares, all you have to do is look at this part right here, and you can see there's one easy corner and then another longer piece that's the same width as what you see in the cutting diagram. So if you wanted to make these with jelly roll strips instead of squares like this, you can just make this a strip, this a strip, this a strip, this a strip, and then put them together. All right, so now that I have this, I'm going to have to close it with a single triangle. And so I'm going to need a single triangle on this side. And this is one of this size right here, 4 7/8. And then I'm going to need a little triangle on this side. You can cut it 2 7/8 right here and cut it in half, and that will go there. But I made mine 3 inches so that it's a little bit bigger, and then I'm just going to trim that corner. So I made mine a tiny bit bigger. I made it 3 inches instead of 2 7/8. Just going to cut it in half. That's going to go there, and then this one will go here, and that's how I did my center block. So I'm going to lay this here. I'm going to line this up so that I have a 1/4 inch hanging off of each side, just like this. And I should see just a 1/4 inch on either side. I'm going to come down here and sew, and then I'm going to add that baby triangle. And so super easy. I'm going to bring the baby triangle with me. Line up those edges. And this entire unit, once you finish it, should measure 6.5 inches wide by 10.5 inches tall. So I'm just going to come around. I'm going to snip this off. And I'm going to bring this open. I'm just going to run my finger across that seam like this. Just kind of finger press it open. I don't need to press it. Just take your fingernail. And that makes it super flat. And then you're going to lay this right here. You're just going to line it up so that it has a bunny ear on either side. So you're going to line up those little overhangs. And then we're going to come over here. Remember, it's bigger than what we need it to be. And then we're just going to sew 1/4 inch across that edge. And when you do that, you will end up with a nice block that requires very, very little trimming. All right. I've got full sunlight. I've got a different web camera this time because my other web camera was causing my computer problems. All right, so now I'm going to press it out. And I should have 1/4 inch seam up here with these weird bunny ears that I can nip off. And I should have this triangle down here that looks a little bit bigger than it should be. And so now I'm just going to measure it to see if it meets my requirement of 10.5 by 6.5. And so I'm just going to line up a ruler here from the top to the bottom. This is 10.5, so I'm going to line that up on that edge right there. I have a tiny bit to trim, and it looks like that's pretty darn accurate. So all I have to trim off is the excess from this triangle here that was oversized. And so I know that I just need to trim it really quick across the top to make it even. So I'm just going to use a line this way and a line that way to make sure that I'm straight across. I need to make sure that I leave 1/4 inch right there at the tip. And that is all that I need to trim from this block, this tiny piece. That's all. Because it now matches my requirement that it be 10.5. And there it is, it's 10.5. Now, it needs to be 6.5 across, so I can use a 6.5 inch ruler that I have right here, and I can just square that up. So I'm just going to line up that 6.5 inch ruler. I want to make sure that it's even, that I have 1/4 inch overhang right here to make sure that I'm not ruining those little bits right there. And then I'm just going to sliver trim what needs to come off. That looks like just the bunny ears. And over here, I'm just going to line that up like this and trim off those bunny ears. And it looks like that's pretty good. I just needed to cut bunny ears off of that side. And over here, same thing. I'm just going to nip some bunny ears, and I'm going to nip the bunny ears. And down here at the bottom, I just want to make it straight. So I use that 45-degree line it up, and trim off the bunny ear. And now I have my center unit. So this is done. Super easy. What do you guys think about this? The 2-square method is super easy. I'm going to review it again. Whatever square you start off with for your background, mine was 4 7/8, you add 1/4 inch. So I did 5 1/8 and 4 7/8 to give me the 2-square method. And that's the easiest, fastest way. Or like I said, you can cut individual triangles according to the diagram, and you can just sew them on top of these. Now, if you're going to do the traditional method, remember when you line these up, you have to let the overhang stick on this side to the outside and then on the right to the right. So the right overhangs to the right, the left overhangs to the left. If you're going to do it with the triangle method. So if you're going to do the triangle method, just remember that. And that's it, friends. This is how easy it is. And then the only thing that's left for me to do once I do all of these little bits is to go ahead and add the sides. In this case, I just added 2 jelly roll strips that are 10.5 inches. Mine are yellow to look like coral. I cut them straight of green, and I'm just going to lay one on either side, left and right, sew them a 1/4 inch seam on both sides, and what I will get when I am done and I press this open is a nice block that looks just like this. That's 10.5 by 10.5, and you're going to want 14 of those. I hope that this was easy enough for you to understand. I wanted to give you a block that was interesting. Mine looks kind of like water, and so to me this is like a school of fish, and then this is coral, and so that's what I'm doing to mine. And so all of mine are going to get stitched. I've got to put 2 of these together, and I'm going to put 2 across the top and then 2 across the bottom before I sew the sides on, right? So I'm going to have 2 of these. I'm going to sew them end to end, and this should be 20.5 by 30.5 because these are 10.5 inch squares. And so that's what you're going to have. Does anybody have any questions, anything, any additional resources you think I didn't provide or didn't give you? This is going to be super fun, super easy. You can lay these however you want. I'm going to lay mine up here so I can check them out. I like how they're looking, and I'm going to put those all the way around. They're going to make a great border for my applique sea animals. All right, friends, that was part 2 of Krabby Patty. Please give it a thumbs up if you like it. Go back and watch the first one if you missed it. Please tell me if there's anything else I need to add. I appreciate all of your support. I know that it's summertime and it's pretty outside, but I hope you enjoyed this. I think this is going to be really, really cute. I like how it's turning out. All right, friends, thank you for indulging me in my fun hobby. I hope that you enjoy the free patterns. Share it with your friends. Go to my website. Go to the Facebook page. And don't forget to like it, give it a thumbs up, and share it with everybody you know that likes sewing. Bye-bye, friends. I'll see you guys later.